with my brother, Professor Thomas Rozdzynski, owner, founder of RŌL Academy in Chicago, podcaster, RŌL Academy podcast?
Yeah, RŌL Radio.
RŌL Radio podcast. We've had some big names in there. I remember when we first started, right? I was one of the first guys, and that's kind of how that was how we met, I think, you know?
Yeah.
Right?
You were the number one.
I was number one.
You were the number one. Yeah. we were like, we need a big name. and so it happened. So
yeah, it's funny. That's cool. It's an honor. It's an honor. Now you guys, you've had a lot of great guests on there now.
Oh yeah. No, it's been a privilege to talk to some of the biggest names. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's so cool. And you're on a great, I look forward to visiting one day. But it sounds like a great gym. Great people, great everything. It seems like. Yeah,
we've been privileged to have a great group of guys, and a great amount of good personalities, and just people with passion to train jiu-jitsu, and a bunch of kids, and it just continues. It gives you the fire to keep showing up and keep doing what you love. So it's awesome.
That's it, right? Yeah, that's it. It's the people, right, that motivate us to keep coming in.
Yeah, for sure.
Gets you through the years and gets you excited about the years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You came and did a workshop, a seminar last time you were here. And then we did a podcast.
Yeah.
We were joking, right? We actually some technical difficulties. Now we have Kevin as our producer, so that doesn't happen again.
Shout out to Kevin over there. No pressure, Kevin.
Yeah. But it's so great to have you out again.
Yeah.
To connect. And
it's great to come out, great to visit, great to have some good conversations, and good training. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can't go wrong coming down here.
Well, it's an honor. It's an honor. Yeah. So how did you get into jiu-jitsu? I love your story, how you when we first started talking, and your story, your personal story, your jiu-jitsu story. Mm-hmm. How did that, you're originally from?
Poland.
Mm-hmm. And you came here as, how old were you when you came to the US?
My teens, my early teens. My dad, I think first time my dad came to US was like 96 or 97 or so. So I was, 6 or 8, something around those lines.
Okay.
And he kept going back and forth, kind of the working visa concept, and at some point during my early teens, I came here for vacation, kind of visit him, and I did that a few times back and forth, and it kind of came to the point where I was flying back and forth, I was still doing school in Poland, but I was coming here quite frequently, and it came to the point where it was like, it kind of doesn't make sense, financially and just logistically, and honestly, I never had that conversation whose decision this was or whose idea was to stay. But at some point,
seems like you made it your own, right?
I have some stories that, here was more appealing than back home. But at some point we made a decision to settle down here, and the life kind of continued from that point, and.
So you finished high school in US, in Chicago?
Yeah, I finished high school. I went to school here, then I got into IT from very, entry-level positions, and I worked myself up, all the way up through the corporate ladder.
Did you go to university after high school?
Yeah. I went, in Chicago. I studied there, and then... my jiu-jitsu journey kind of began. That's an interesting story, actually. I do think so, and I share it quite openly because I think it could be, or it is an inspiration to many, how everything happens for a reason, and I'm a strong believer of that. My boss in IT, in my first job, he trained, and a good friend of mine, shout out to Eric, but he trained jiu-jitsu, and I think he was a blue belt at that time, and I remember him walking by my desk, with his belt out and his gi, and he was doing during lunch.
Yeah.
And I was
boss, huh?
My boss,
boss.
yeah,
That's
my
cool.
boss, yeah, and to frame this correctly, this was kind of unhealthy part of my life. I call it Fluffy Thomas, so I was quite heavy, and I think his objective was to kind of guide me in the right direction. you know, and he was kind of that father figure in the corporate world, if you will, and you know, and he kept poking me and kind of talking to me about it, and I finally, you know, I gave in and I went to that class in 2 and 3, and I was addicted to it, you know.
Wow.
And it's
Your boss recruited you.
Yeah, isn't that
without
funny?
even knowing, right?
Yeah,
that he was going to turn you into.
Isn't that funny?
Changing that into a different.
Yeah, and now
changing your life around.
Yeah, and now he, you know, he runs a striking program at my academy.
No way.
And we are very close, you know.
Wow.
And it's very interesting to.
That's a great story.
Yeah, you know, and it things happen for a reason, you know, and that's like one of the anchors. What I really strongly believe that we might not see why it's happening or why we experiencing things, but I do believe that things happen for a reason. And then years later, we really might discover what the anchor, what the reasoning was behind it. So we should appreciate what we have at this moment of time. So
yeah, be grateful no matter what, right? What situation we're in.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to go back and to Poland, you know, because I was sharing with you, like, one of my favorite memories, you know, was going to Poland to do like a summer camp. You know, like the Polish people are so warm and welcome. And I have a lot of great Polish friends. You know, after all these years, I stayed connected with a lot of them. You know, I have a Polish, you know, friend, Philip, that comes to visit, you know, on his vacations and stuff. How was it growing up in Poland?
You know, my recollection is that it was my parents were, you know, working parents, you know, blue collar, and my dad always worked hard to provide for the family, no matter what it was. And I do remember him even having 2 or 3 jobs just to make sure that everything is supplied that way. So a very hard work ethic all throughout. But at the same time, it was, you know, very much so driven towards the opportunities. So you got to make your own path. You got to create your own life. Nobody's going to do it for you. That's how I was brought up. You know, I think today that view is slightly different, you know, because of circumstances of life, how we find ourselves. But
what year did you move to the U.S.?
You know, I was 11 or 12, somewhere around. So I went back and forth, right? So like 11 or 12, somewhere around there. So that would be 89.
So it was still like communist, right, in Poland?
Yeah, so that was fading away. That was fading away. You know, but there were some. I remember there was something. Yeah, I remember Soviet Union folding down. Like I remember that.
Was 90? Was it 92? 90? What was it?
No, there was 80. That was in the 80s.
80s. Okay, 80s. So around that time.
Yeah, it was the 80s. Yeah, I was little. Like I remember Chernobyl, the explosion. Right. I remember that. Like I have a clear recollection. I was even talking to my mom about this. Like we were standing in line for like 4 or 6 hours to get the shot. Because they were so close. The
radioactive shot.
Yeah. I remember that, you know, and
that was what was that? That was in the 80s.
86, I think. I remember. Exactly.
Have you seen the Chernobyl show? Is it on
HBO?
HBO? That movie?
Yeah. That's kind of how the conversation with my mom started, because it popped up on HBO. I watched it and I like called my mom. I was like, "Do you remember this?" And I was like, "Yeah." We were talking about it.
That's crazy. Yeah, because they were denying, right, that something happened.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, all these clouds, these radioactive clouds, came over like the you know, like Sweden, and you know, and they're like, "What's going on? Something happened, right?" And it went all over Europe, right? Just the way the wind blew or whatever, the atmosphere. Yeah, I remember my mom, because I was a kid too. She moved us. We came back for a year after when it happened. So we were living in Munich, Germany at the time. And she's like, no, we're gonna go back to the States for a year, just to kind of like let stuff blow over a little bit, you know, just because it would rain, right? And then you couldn't be out in the rain because it was like radioactive rain. Right. Do you remember that? Yeah. And like the food and everything. Oh, yeah. You were supposed to like certain foods. So,
you had to wash it certain way. Like, I remember it. It was a big deal. It was a big deal. Like it's. Isn't it interesting how one event can really embed? Like I have zero recollection of my childhood around that time, but that I do remember.
Yeah. I remember that too because we moved back, right? We moved back for a year because you know, another thing was I wasn't speaking like English anymore. I was like speaking full German. I wasn't, because I was going to German schools.
How long did you live in Germany?
Like about 7 years. Like most of my childhood years I was there. Yeah. And so my mom was like, yeah, that's a good kind of reason to go back for a year just to kind of make sure.
Did you have to
keep the culture?
Did you have to relearn English, or did it come back naturally?
I wasn't responding at all in English, so I think it was still there, right?
Yeah.
But when I came back, I was a little bit slow. But once I came and started, TV and just talking to everybody, it kind of came back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as sharp, right, at the beginning. So it was important that I came back because I wasn't speaking, And then if you don't use it, you lose it, right? You don't.
Yeah, it's perishable
speak
skill.
It, yeah. Especially when you're a kid.
Yeah.
You learn really fast, but you also forget really fast.
Yeah. The reason why I'm asking is because I learned English all my childhood as part of schooling. And my dad always even did like private lessons because I guess there was a thought of us moving here at some point, But the moment I came here, I always felt like I had to forget everything I learned and I had to learn everything from the beginning. You know what I mean? And even now, like I still speak Polish, I said to my dad and mom, we speak Polish, but like I have to really think. What I'm saying and how I'm saying. Like there's
it's
slower,
lag, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like
it's
English is I say it's still my second language, but like I speak it by far more. I'm more responsive.
Because you practice it, you do it every single day. It's interesting, right?
It's kind of like jiu-jitsu, isn't it?
Yeah.
Perishable skill.
Yeah. Everything, anything, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Just basic bodily things, right? If you don't do it every day or every week, you forget. Yeah. Or you're not as good at it, right? You slow down on it. Yeah. All right. So going back to your jiu-jitsu, journey, your boss talks you into doing jiu-jitsu class, which that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
And so you did 1, 2, 3, and then you become addicted.
I get hooked. It gets to the point where I'm, Googling, and I mean, I don't remember. I don't think Google existed, or if it did, it was like very premature, stages. But I remember Yahoo, and like old Yahoo, where you had blue tag, white pages, blue tags. You click on it, they change color. Oh my God,
Yahoo search, right?
Yeah, right. And I remember there was one website. It was, I think, called BJJ.org.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember that site?
You could like search all the lineage. Basically.
The lineage, right. And there was a couple pages, not much, but I remember going to the website and reading over and over because there was nothing else, you know. And then you get a hold of one book, or then you get a hold of what was it, Black Belt magazine? There was a little bit,
that grappling magazine. That was a part of Black Belt magazine. That's where you got your info from.
Yeah. And like you get hold of some of these things, and you just keep researching, you keep digging, you keep more and more and more, but life was different than it is today.
Yeah, for sure.
The accessibility of information is not the same as we have today,
So what years were those?
2000s, early 2000s.
Early 2000s. So I'm trying to think back. So they had the BJJ.org, and then on the mat, started to upload some kind of things, but not really. A blog and little experiences of training in Brazil. And then there was 80 Combat, right?
Yes.
After that, 80combat.com, the Abu Dhabi kind of.
Abu Dhabi stuff.
They had news there, right? Which is cool because you could go there and kind of see what's happening. And then what year was that? Maybe like 2004, 2005. They had like these jiu-jitsu forums. It was like NHB gear.
NHB,
form.
Yeah, with their forums. They were like underground.
Underground, right? NHB underground forum. Yeah. And then they still have it today, the MMA.tv or MMA.com, whatever it is now. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it was insane. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they had then Sherdog and stuff for MMA.
Yeah.
But jiu-jitsu per se was like so niche, so underground kind of in a way.
There's really nothing there,
And then it wasn't until really like later on until like the Ultimate Fighter kind of, for it to get more mainstream, right? Because a little bit before that, like the Spike TV and stuff, But it was the Ultimate Fighters and stuff that really brought it mainstream. The reason I remember that is because we opened up a second school in New Mexico. And we did a commercial during the Ultimate Fighter, the first season, and then everybody was watching it, and it blew up too after that. But it was just a different time, right? Like it was like very underground,
Oh yeah.
Unless you watched like the early UFCs with Royce Gracie.
Yeah. Even that, like it was very, it wasn't as, I think I tell my students all the time that they are spoiled today. Like, good, bad, no, neither direction. There's just, the point is that the accessibility to jiu-jitsu and information is so great, and it could be a blessing and a curse, but It is very different than what we had 20 or even 10 years ago.
Yeah. So your early 2000s. So where did you get your like tournament footage and things like that?
Well, none of that existed really. Like and I think until like 2010, maybe 14. Like, do you remember like Pan Am's was broadcasted by Budo Videos, right?
Budo Videos, yeah. So you would, because everything was like top secret, right?
Yeah.
Like between each gym, it was like very top secret. Like you would like, you know, like it was like top secret. Now everything's like everything's out there.
Yeah, matter of fact, we talked to Draculino on our podcast, you know, he was telling us stories like way back in 70s or 80s in Brazil, you know, like nobody talked to anybody. And like if you wanted to know what one was doing, what somebody else from another gym was doing, like technique-wise, you had to go to tournament and watch them.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise you didn't know. And I feel like the early 2000s here in U.S. was similar. Like it was
for sure.
It was very divided. You know, there was this whole team thing, very guarded
I think all the
approach.
way till you know it started to become more mainstream. Well, beginning of mainstream, beginning of UFC on TV with like Spike TV back in like 2005, 6, 7.
Yeah,
Then it began.
Yeah, and I think like Budo Videos take it to the next level. Then obviously BJJ Fanatics stepped off now.
Flow grappling.
Flow grappling. Yep. So all that Isn't it interesting how the evolution?
I mean, man, let me tell you my story, right, from the 90s. Okay, so for me to get my footage, right, of course you have to go to the tournaments, and I went with that big old, video.
The shoulder one.
The shoulder one, yeah. Man, I like, whatever. I didn't give a damn because I'm going to get this footage.
Yeah.
But they had, so when I was living in Brazil, they had Sport TV, and they broadcast like the finals and semifinals. I think mainly the finals though, of like the big tournaments. And so I would like record, remember they record like a tape record, like a audio tape, right? Yeah. Plus record, and I would record those, and then I would replay the technique over and over and over to study. But also, on the mat, they did a lot of they came down to Brazil, all over the U.S. And so that was really cool. And then there was this guy, Paqueta, rest in peace. He was a Carlson Gracie black belt. And he was the guy that just videotaped like all the tournaments. And if it wasn't for him, I don't know if there would have been like any of the footage, right? Because nobody's carrying a shoulder, like a camera on their shoulder, right, to record the matches, But he was so passionate, about it. So yeah, you had to actually look around for him, and he would sell it out of his trunk of his car, the VHS tapes.
Side hustle.
Man, it's crazy. It's crazy that you had to find this like little ball that he'd wear like a fanny pack, like a belly, and you'd find the Paqueta, and you would find chase, walk after him and
give him money. And
yeah. Hey, you have some tapes? It's like, let me see what I have. Be like, yes, he has this, he has that, cool. And
that's mind blowing.
And I would bring it back to the U.S. when I would come. Yeah, but it was like really top secret, to get any kind of footage. But when you did, it was powerful.
Think about it from the perspective of evolution, and what I mean by that,
everything's slower, right? So much slower,
right? Yeah, like when you brought your tape. By the time you watched it, by the time you shared it, by the time you studied it, it's probably months in. And somebody else is already developing something else.
I used to have this mentor. He was a really top wrestler, and he'd always say, it takes about a year, for people to learn all the, not learn, but updated things, like stay up to date with the newest techniques and things like that, new stuff that's coming out, That was back in 15 years plus, Now it's in the gym, They have cameras in the gym recording people. It's just a matter of you doing the work, right? And wanting to learn the things. But instantly on, in the matches, right? It's live. Yeah. But even before so, you can usually see things. Yeah. Before so, and then with all these instructionals and everything else, it's like there's no no hiding anymore, right?
No. I think that's the big part of evolution of jiu-jitsu. It's like everything is accessible, everything is available. There's no secret techniques. Yeah. It's all about execution. Yeah. It's all about the person, not the technique. You know what I mean? Chaining things and figuring out and reading and it's interesting. I remember sitting at the academy and looking at books, like jiu-jitsu instructionals, and like you had like 6 or 8 pictures of these different stages, you know, and then like I remember sitting with guys and we were scratching like, okay, so, you know, picture 3 to picture 4, like how is that, you know, what happened between, like there's a gap here, we don't know what, trying to sitting and figuring out how he got there from one point to another. Today you just on your phone,
Yeah, it's crazy.
boom, play it,
Yeah.
go, done.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Do you think videos are a good tool for the students?
Yeah, I mean, that's, you can study, right? You know, I mean, nothing, you know, it depends on how you learn, right?
Yeah.
Some people are like really, they can watch it on video and they can get it, like,
Yeah.
without even practicing it almost,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
But I think overall, I think to do it yourself, to drill it, to break it down, to, you know, I think that's the best way, you know?
Yeah.
And get any feedback from the outside too a little bit, right? I think that's the overall, generally, right? Universally, I think that's the best way to really learn, right? To do
Mhm.
it. Yeah. But some people, they're visual learners. They can just like watch it and do it, right?
Oh yeah. No, I got a few of those students. They'll watch it, they'll come in, and then boom,
They hit it. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. All right, so going back to your so how did you started training? You started, you know, getting addicted. You
Yeah.
know, you started like loving it. You know, getting totally immersed. You know, and what was it like? How did you get going? How did you start wanting to, like, you know, I think I want to make this a lifestyle, and maybe perhaps have a you know, a gym one day.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an evolution or kind of progressive approach as time went on. You know, I mean, from the very beginning, this was very appealing to me. You know, and to frame this correctly, I come from an engineering background, right? So, you know, computer science and computer engineering and working on large systems. So a lot of, you know, math and logistics. All that was part of my life, and it was I found a lot of similarities between my work and jiu-jitsu, a lot of troubleshooting, you know, so it was very easy for me to adapt to some of the situations, and I just love troubleshooting. So it was, you know, I got immersed, pulled into this very quickly, you know, and I just got stuck with it, you know, and as time went on through blue and purple, you know, I always found very rewarding to help others, you know, with their jiu-jitsu.
Rewarding.
Yeah. But I've never had an opportunity to teach. Matter of fact, you know,
In your old gym.
yeah. Yeah. Matter of fact, I think like true teaching came to me when I was a black belt, actually. Like I think today students have an opportunity to teach earlier, you know, which that wasn't the case for me. So it was, you know, I always had the desire to help others. And as time went on, you know, an idea, a seed was planted in my head, and you know, it just went through it, you know, and then we made the decision, you know, and to venture out in that direction. And then as time went on, you know, obviously leaving the corporate life and converting into a full-time business owner. And then now, you know, here we are. I get to hang out with you.
It's crazy, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of like cross, right? You saw like Mark Zuckerberg talk about, you know, like jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, you saw
martial
that.
arts. Yeah, right. It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, Lex Friedman,
Yeah.
you know, and then, you know, there's legacy in Armenia, right? And they have there's a lot of IT guys there. And they gravitate towards jiu-jitsu as well. And they all talk about like how it stimulates their brain, their mind, and there's so many similarities, right? With you know, computers. You saw all the things that the work, right?
Right.
And they gravitate towards it and they stick with it. What do you think that is? That, you know, what's the connection? How does it help? Why do they stay?
I think the ability to solve problems, you know, and for those who enjoy that part, you know, I think those are the ones who will stick around for longer, you know. But, you know, to be honest, I think every student will, like, I see jiu-jitsu in like these three three different areas. Is like community is one part, right? So it's like the heavy social environment where there are some students, they don't come necessarily, they do jiu-jitsu, but that's not the main reason. They come to hang out, to create a bond because their friends are there, right? So that's like one component of it. Two is that physical aspect. You know, you work out, you break a sweat,
healthy,
you stay healthy, you know, so that's the second part. And the third one is the mind stimulation. This is where you troubleshoot, you really focus on it. You're trying to figure stuff out. You're trying to solve the problems and continue evolving and figure, you know, especially now with videos, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I think the one who can engage in more of those areas, that's the one that will stay longer, you know. So if you just here for physical components only, right? This is only stimulation you get. Likely at some point you're gonna get bored. You know, but there is a physical and troubleshooting. Now your mind and body is involved. Now, if you can connect this to this, you know, I don't know if spiritual is the word, but that connection to community, to create this bond with people. Now you have three different connections. Not only you stimulate your body, not you stimulate your mind, but you have your friends. You know, like even somebody asked me this recently, actually, is like, how many people do I know outside of jiu-jitsu? And I really had to think about it. Like, you know, like I do know people outside of jiu-jitsu, but like 99% of people I just know through jiu-jitsu in some capacity.
Man, I used to be antisocial. If you didn't do jiu-jitsu, like I couldn't really talk to you. I've gotten better because of my wife and you know, family and just other people, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know, but otherwise, like I couldn't really connect, you know.
Yeah.
If you didn't do, because I was so immersed in it.
Yeah.
Like say 100%, but 99 whatever percent, you know.
Yeah. Sometimes
um,
I find myself in that spot. Like I'll go to an event and there's a bunch of people and like some of them are like, you know, triathletes and like, I mean, you know, there is a physical component that, you know, and they can talk all about it. And I have a hard time connecting. And then somebody will ask me a question, jiu-jitsu questions, like, what do you do? Or what, you know? And then boom, instantly I can connect and relate. So I share the same struggle, I suppose.
Yeah. I've gotten better. I give myself some credit, but it was bad, you know, it was really bad. But yeah, that's interesting. You say that, like just fully immersed, right? Because it simulates everything. And then Mark Zuckerberg talked about that, right? On the Joe Rogan podcast, right? Yeah. How like he likes to do things that fully immerse him in jiu-jitsu. He's talking about MMA too. Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. But jiu-jitsu like has it all. Yeah. Yeah. Right? And you can do it forever. Yeah. And so that was just so cool to see him like appreciate it. And he's like, man, why didn't I find it? Why didn't I do it before? Yeah. It's like how common thing, right? You hear, right?
And I think thanks to guys like this, the sport continues growing. You know, him, Joe Rogan, and you know, Lax, and there's many others, but you see some celebrities training and all that. All that creates awareness. Yes. You know, and hopefully
there's a reason, right? Right. They're doing it.
Right. Yeah. Jiu-jitsu is awesome.
Yeah.
If you're listening and you don't do it, go do it right now.
Right. So okay. So you, one thing led to another. School. So what was the process? Because you told me the story. Yeah. The last time we spoke, I thought it was really cool because you're like, okay, I'm going to set a goal. I'm going to start this thing. Yeah. You kept your IT job. Yeah. You kept your day job. Yeah. And you like did double time, right? Yeah. Yeah. So you were sharing with me too, your wife, you know, now your wife, right? It was like, man, I don't know if I would have done that. I would have said okay to that if you asked me again now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So stepping back a little bit, right? So before my academy, before teaching, my entire life I was heavily involved in photography and film in some capacity. So for a brief amount of time, I had this film production company called Things BJJ, and we did very, very short documentary-like segments on different individuals. We had Hannah Gracie, we had Carly Gracie, you know, we have Andre Galvao, you know, Gustavo Dantes, and they just told their story, you know. And if you have
Things BJJ,
it's on YouTube. Okay, it you know, and we.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Look it up. I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, shameless plug, but you know, go check it out. I think we did a pretty decent job. But at some point, it became to such a huge production. We had like 2 cars because we went to location. It was on location shoot, you know, and it was very specifically visually. So it was pitch dark room with one light, very dramatic, telling their stories, But we had to drag all the equipment everywhere, and at some point, me and my partner were like, well, wouldn't it be nice if we just had our own place and they came to us, and I start scratching my head, and they said, well, maybe we should look into that, So I looked in a few warehouses, this and this and that, but very quickly, it became very obvious that we can't make enough money to sustain the location, right? It renting a space and producing, one film a month is just not gonna pay the bills, at least not on the beginning. So it kind of gradually converted into, well, maybe we can run an academy and then do the films on the side.
That either. Okay.
Academy. Yeah. But the goal was do academy part-time and do the film. This was our goal, right? Well, as we start looking into this, I was like, well, we can't run academy part-time. Like, how, that's nonsense right now. So, like, as time went on, we start looking at running academy full-time and doing film part-time. And at some point, it was like, okay, well, we got to scratch this film thing for a moment. We got to get this academy thing off the ground.
So we can pay the bills. And
yeah,
pay
absolutely.
The rent and all that.
So anyway, that's how the idea of academy was born. And then once the decision was made to open an academy, we begin like a serious process of creating a test class, getting specific goals accomplished, what we need, LLC and name and branding and establishing location and, getting classes and, how is this going to be scheduling wise and everything. And this is all at the same time as I'm working my full-time corporate job. So, you get out from work at 5, so you have, from 6 down to 10, maybe 4 hours, not a lot of time to run classes, So, it became a lot of grind. I'll tell you that. Anybody who wants to do this, I'll tell you, think a lot about it. I have good support network because it was a grind. I mean, I was leaving my house at probably, 6 a.m. and I was not coming back until midnight every night, and then as time went on, it became more visible that we're getting traction. The business actually is successful, and as time went on, this went on for about 2 years. And as time went on, there was this hard conversation that we had to have of converting because it was not sustainable to do this long term. So we had to make a decision when and how this will happen. So you find yourself in this very difficult position of you make certain amount of money from a steady income, yet you have this passion that you want to get off the ground, but you can't make more of this passion unless you give up the steady income, yet this passion is not making the same amount of money. So you have to make this very high risk decision of flipping and setting yourself with everything you have around you that you simply don't have a choice to fail. Because like for me, there was no option to fail. 0, right? So you have family to support, you have there's people who are dependent on you. So we had to set everything all around it. Once the conversion took place, it's going to go only forward. So we did a lot of thinking, a lot of studying, and I even remember to this day, I had sticky notes on my mirror and in my bathroom, counting down the days. And to be honest with you, that's one thing that really pushed me to drive harder than anything else. It was months. Once we established the date when I'm going to resign and convert, I start putting sticky notes with a countdown, 120 days, 119, 18.
Wow, that kept you like focused.
Every morning I woke up, I saw the number, and I was like, it's one less than it was yesterday. Keep going, And then I remember the day when I woke up the one day and I took number 1 down and I put 0 on it. And I had a tear in my eye, and I went to work and I resigned, and I've never looked back, and here we are. So
getting all emotional talking about
it. Well, it's interesting because honestly, I haven't talked about it in a while. I've said that story many times, but I haven't talked about it in a while. But it's a, we find ourselves in these opportunities in life, I think, and often we don't recognize them. But once we do recognize them, if we don't take action, they will never come true. right? And the action most of the time comes from developing a plan and then executing on a plan. So I guess what I'm trying to say is between the dream and the finished product, there's many stepping stones. And we can't give up at any point of time. We just have to push forward to the next milestone, one step at a time. And actually, this morning, I heard something. I don't remember who said it, but I heard something that impossible is just a perception. It's an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
There is no scientific proof that something is impossible. I think Tony Robbins, it was on Instagram, but I think Tony Robbins was saying that. Impossible is only a perception. It's an opinion. There's no scientific study that something is impossible, because what we thought was impossible yesterday, people have done it today. So it's all about creating a plan. You know, it's all about figuring out how to get to the goal.
If we can think it right, we can conceive it right. We can make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're only we're just in our way of making it happen, right?
Yeah. Jay Shetty, he's a motivational speaker, but he said, was it Jay Shetty? Or I don't remember. Anyway, another quote. There's two types of people in the world. One who see the goal, and they will do everything to get to the goal. Another group of people will find every obstacle, and they will focus on that. I don't know.
That's it. Yeah. One good thing I think that one quality I have is like commit. You know, if I do it, I go all in to the death.
Yeah.
Not to be dramatic, but you know, I fully commit myself. You know, that's one good thing. I have a lot of things, faults, whatever I can look at myself as, but that's one good thing about me. For that, those kinds of things.
Well, I mean,
moving to Brazil, right? Those things, kind of keep you just the commitment, right? Writing down your goals, right? Writing down your goals.
Yeah.
I think I shared with you too, like when I was like 18, I read that Think and Grow Rich book, the Napoleon Hill, and he's like writing down your goals.
Yeah.
And then when you write down your goals, like it sounds like, you wrote down all your goals, all your things specifically as well. And then that helped you stay focused, right? Counting down the days for months, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And so many people don't even, some of them don't set the goals at all, and some of them set very vague goals, so it's like, I think there is some madness behind it. And if you look at people who are successful, they are very focused on what they want to do. Yeah. So.
Well, congratulations. Amazing story. Love it.
Thank you. I mean, if it comes as an inspiration to someone, I hopefully it does. So, here we are.
Yeah. So how did the podcast, how did the RŌL Radio happen?
Yeah. So that's we can, I guess, point out so many negative things about pandemic, and yet, this is like one of the best things that happened in my life, So again, like this is all about perspective on life, in my opinion. Like pandemic, it doesn't matter what I think, what you think about it. It is what it is. It was there, right? And we were in it. And we found ourselves in this unfortunate position where Academy had to be closed, and in order for us to stay operational and engaged and keep my guys working, to be honest with you. I had a very honest conversation with my guys on the very beginning as it was coming down the pipe.
Like your team, your
and I said, we will continue paying everybody. Nobody's getting, cut or anything, but we're going to work. And you will be asked to do things that you've never done before, and we're going to have to figure it out. It is what it is. These are our options. And funny thing is that we thought it would be like a week or two, but
right,
2 weeks, right? Yeah, it's gonna blow over, But
2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years.
And then I remember going to Gary. Shout out to Gary, who's my co-host on the podcast. But and does a million other things at the Academy. But I remember going to Gary, and I said, "What do you think if we started a podcast?" He goes, I don't know. Maybe let me think about it. And I was like, well, think fast because equipment is here and we are starting. Boom, right? So that just gives you a glimpse to my personality. Like I was already going forward with it, right? And Gary's like, okay, but we don't know how to do it. Well, we got to figure it out. This is what we got to do.
Problem solve.
We got to figure out what we're going to do. We got to, and we start thinking about it, why we're going to do this, and it's like, well, all these guys are working less, right? Everybody's struggling right now. Everybody's in the middle of this negative pandemic, this chaos. Why don't we bring a conversation and talk to these guys, And what we're going to talk to them about? I was like, why don't we talk about their stories? Why don't we talk about the untold stories? It's not about, and from the beginning we said, we don't want to talk about gold medals. We don't want to talk about victories. We don't want to talk about how awesome you are. We want to talk about the struggles of your life. We want to talk about what it took for you to get where you are, and let's get some of these big name guys, all the guys that we look up to, and funny is like, was like, well, who are we going to talk to first? We start Googling stuff. So, Alberto Crane. He's too big. There's no way he's on it. And I messaged you. I was like, yeah, let's do it. He said, yes. Yeah. Little party in there.
That's funny. That's so funny, right?
Yeah.
Just so random, right?
Yeah. It was completely random. But see, things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Being open to the possibilities, right? That's all you got to be.
And it was great. I mean, we sucked as a interviewers, but we've learned few things, and I think that's the big thing. Now 115 episodes in, tens of thousands of downloads and all the other things, and it's not about the numbers, but it gives us. Gary and I, we were talking about this last week. It puts in a perspective how many people we are impacting with a very simple conversation. How are you? What did you do? What have you done to get here? How Jiu-Jitsu has impacted you? What others can do to enjoy life as much as you do? And now we've had the privilege of talking to many yourself, Draculino, and Estima brothers. I mean, Horian Gracie, Marcelo Gomez, and I mean, there's so many. It's ridiculous, And every, and I have a book. Like, if you watch the YouTube if you watch the podcast on YouTube, you'll see that I have a notebook, and I write down little things, And I'm a big note taker. So I write down little things, and sometimes I go back and review things, the golden nuggets, the golden things, the little takeaways, So it's been, as much as this whole thing started as a kind of stay out of boredom in a way, keep busy, now it turned into a big point of learning things about myself and about others, and a really, point of growth, I suppose. So it's it's been very, very rewarding.
Well, congratulations on this as well. This avenue, right? This road. So it's been pretty cool to see you guys grow and all these amazing guests and stuff on the show. I'm always cheering you on when I say, "Oh, cool, yeah." Draculino, Horian Gracie, right?
Yeah.
The guy who started the UFC, right?
Yeah. So it's been fun talking to him. So.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you. About during the pandemic, right? Crazy times. We don't know what's gonna happen. Was there any moment where you're like, you know what, like maybe I'll go back to the office and do some kind of job like that?
Yeah. Funny you say this, because my wife and then my father-in-law one day.
Because we didn't know, right, what was going to happen.
No, like, you're talking about the moment when we were like, there was a day when this is weeks, or I don't remember exactly, but we are shut down. The academy doesn't work, and we are doing this podcast thing, figuring stuff out and scratching our heads. What's going to be next? There was more and more cancellations coming in every single day. Like I'm looking at the bottom line, and we're getting to the red line closer and closer and closer.
Like ridiculous amounts every day.
It's it was a tough time. So one, we are trying to figure out how are we going to generate the money, from a business perspective, so to make this sustainable. So that's one. But at some point, my father-in-law called me, and he goes, this, big Amazon, warehouse, and it's like there's one of those gigantic Amazons who built nearby, and I was like, yeah, I'm sure they have a lot of IT jobs. And I was like, what are you referring to? Why are we talking about this? I was like, yeah, start thinking about plan B, this and this and that. And obviously that it started the conversation within the family, and for a moment, to answer your question, for a moment, it has crossed my mind, what if, but I've never accepted the fact that my academy will close. So my objective was to figure it out what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, not to close, So we went through a whole list of things, but, talking to landlords, figuring out,
Right.
How
working it out,
what we're going to do, and I think this was a good lesson to look at perspective of life. You can see all the negative, everything that's not going right, or you can start looking at it. How am I going to fix this? What can I do? What can I control? What is out of my control? And what are going to be my steps towards the success, towards my goal? And I think that really, drove us forward again, and it was harsh times, it was harsh times, and, now looking in retrospect, 2 years ago, whatever, right? It's been an interesting time,
Yeah, because you filmed a lot of content, right, during those times.
Yeah, so post-product of pandemic, one, RŌL TV, over 1,000 videos at this point. And we've shot hundreds of them during pandemic. That was one of the projects, right? It was like, listen, we're not teaching, you showing up here every day, cameras are on, we are filming. Boom, film production was going.
Yeah.
Podcast, we were recording, boom, all the entire time. So there were projects that were taking place to keep it alive, and then funny, pandemic passed, and we were like, well, should we stop doing this podcast thing? No.
I like it. Yeah, I'm learning.
No. No. What about the videos? No, we have 1,000 of them. Why stop now? Keep recording,
Yeah.
So, instead of stopping, we added more. But it is what it is. That's the passion.
I remember, right, because we didn't know. I knew at the beginning, right? Okay, we didn't know what was going on. Stay safe, protecting the students, protecting people, right?
Yeah.
But then, and I had a little crew that I stayed to get together with, and we filmed too. But we was still we didn't really know. And then I remember thinking after some weeks passed, right? And I was like, okay. And then some people wanted to train. It was Fight Club, it's underground. The lights were off and everything else, and doors were locked, you know. And I remember just thinking to myself, no matter what, I'm not gonna stop doing this, because it's is this over? It's no matter what, I'm not gonna stop doing this. If I have to, start having classes in my garage, that's what I'm gonna do. Whatever it's gonna take. If I have to, be a trash guy during the day and then do this at night, I'm gonna do that. Whatever it takes, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah.
And the health department and all these people that were coming around. And I was like, no matter what, if I have to put this into somebody else's name, the party's going to continue, because this was helping people, especially after some time passed, right? It was helping people. We live in pretty much like Hollywood, right? And the industry, right? Entertainment industry, and people needed this. There's so many comedian actors that have lost all their way of life, things that they've worked their whole life for, right? And so and then also the kids, they had no school, no social interacting at school. Yeah. So this is the only place where they had social interacting. Yeah. And I was including my kids, right? And so I wasn't going to take that away either from the kids. So I was like, man, I just knew what was right in my heart. I didn't know, right? But I knew what was right in my heart, and I stayed with that,
Yeah. I remember us, because we recorded a podcast during that time. And I remember...
Did I talk about that at the time?
You did. Okay. You did. You were like, we're going to train, and, I'm going to get some sticks, and nobody's coming in here. You did. You should go back and listen. We can play it here. But you know what was interesting during that time? There were some people who obviously were canceling and shifting away in that direction.
Of course.
And I never judged anyone or gave anybody any grief behind it, because we are all in individual situations.
Right.
But it was mind-blowing to me how many people came and say, no, I will not cancel because you changed my life. by this
I'm going to get
changed my
emotional,
life.
like, the people that came in and told
And it
us
says,
that.
I'm going to support.
Paid for like a year, paid for like 2 years.
Yep. And I had many of those. And honestly, without those, and you know who you are out there, and shout out to you. And I know who you are. And it's like those.
Y'all never forget.
No,
I'll
those
never forget
supported us and allowed us to stay, and during harsh times, like, I mean, now we can laugh about it, but it doesn't get more physical contact than jiu-jitsu, right? I mean, it is what it is, but yet.
Crazy times, huh?
Jiu-jitsu changes lives.
Yeah, yeah. That puts things in perspective, right?
Yeah, it sure does.
So let's go back to the jiu-jitsu, the training, teaching. 3 tips for white belts starting out.
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot. Let's see. 3 things. Consistency. I think that's huge. And
I know, Kevin. I know you're a purple belt now, so like you're beyond it.
Yeah. Before you start skipping warm ups, you do need to be consistent. Consistency, I think, is a key, and I think often we find on the beginning of our journey, we find ourselves in this position where we want to train 7 times a week, twice a week. We love it so much, but it's not that. It's the consistency. I have some students who've been coming consistently for 5 years, twice a week. And I'm telling you, their progression is by far, the progression curve is higher than somebody who comes in once a week, then they are 3 times a week. Then you don't see them again, and then they come back, and they are 6 times a week. That up and down, hills and valleys kills it for you. So no matter, look at your schedule. Jiu-jitsu is not the most
routine, right?
Yeah. Jiu-jitsu is not the most important part of your life. It should be important, but your family probably comes first. Your profession comes first, right? Create a consistent schedule. That's 1. 2, don't overthink it. Instagram is awesome. Let's stick to basics. Figure out, just learn the basic jiu-jitsu. And then from there, everything can be built. And the last final one, ask yourself why.
Your why.
Why? Technique doesn't work? Ask why. A technique works? Ask why. Have a deeper understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it. See, I think a lot of people talk about concepts and talking about this high-level understanding, but for me personally, it all comes to why. Why is this armbar work? Why is the choke work? Mechanically. And again, I'm coming from engineering background. That's how I teach jiu-jitsu. Everything is engineered and has to make logical sense. And that's how I look at it, because ultimately it is mechanics. It is leverage. It is gravity. Many don't even talk about gravity, but it's gravity, think about it. We are falling all the time. Right now, I'm falling. This chair is supporting me so I don't get to the ground, but you remove that chair, I'm going to go down. And if you look at jiu-jitsu from that perspective, things get much easier. How come I couldn't sweep him? Well, there was a post. What if I do it again and that post doesn't exist? Boom, they fall. So look at it from mechanical perspective and ask yourself why. Boom, just solve so many problems.
Why? That's really good.
I like it. I get approval from Kevin. Hey, and don't skip warm-ups.
So I like to ask this question. I've asked Hoist Gracie and different. I love to hear people's thoughts. How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu for?
20 plus years.
20 plus years. And so you can think about these 20 years and the ups and downs and the just everything, right? There's a lot of greatness, a lot of sometimes things happen to or injuries I can say, and just things that like you're that are not good times, right? What is something that you're really grateful for, or what is actually, let me switch that up, not grateful for, but what is the biggest thing that you've that jiu-jitsu has given you?
A community, friends. I mean, like it we kind of talked about it, a little bit earlier about it, but I said 99% people I know from jiu-jitsu, through jiu-jitsu, in some capacity connecting to jiu-jitsu. If somebody else asked me this years ago, I think Adam Redzovic asked me this. If somebody wrote me a check for $100 million, let me ask you this. Somebody write you a check right now, $100 million. In return, you remove everything related to your jiu-jitsu from your life. You go back in time and get wiped out. Everything. Your skills, your life, the connections, the relationship, everything is just gone. Would you do it?
No, definitely not. It's priceless what I have.
Absolutely.
It's value way more than, there's no price you can put on that.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that mind-blowing?
Yeah, that's really crazy when you break it down like that.
Yeah. So, with other people around me, I wouldn't be where I'm at. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, and I wouldn't be sitting here. I mean, I wouldn't be, it's priceless.
It's cool. Relationships, yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, man. How can people find you?
Instagram I'm active on Instagram. I actually, answer all messages, so it is not ran by some, automatic bot or anything or marketing company. So find me. I'm not gonna spell my name because it's like 27 letters, but if you search, right, Kevin? Yeah. But if you search ROZD, it'll come up.
So Thomas, RODZ.
Yeah, ROZD. It'll come up. And find me out there. We putting some content. Obviously, look for RŌL Radio on all podcast platforms wherever, or go to RŌLRadio.com. You can go to RŌLAcademy.com. RŌLAcademy.tv is our online platform. Feel free to reach in there. So I'm pretty accessible. So if you like to engage, send me a DM. I answer all of them. So I love it.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.